I'm delighted to be talking to Rahul from Kerala in India. Rahul, you've got a message for us. Please give it to us without further delay.
Thanks, John. So I'm Rahul, and I'm an academic from Germany, originally from Kerala. Now, I have a message to all the Indians. Now, there are increasing evidence that the vitamin D is a big and significant risk factor for COVID-19. Now, in India, we have not seen so far big casualty, but evidence indicates that we are approaching an exponential growth in terms of the number of deaths with the coming of the monsoon. Now, here are some of the facts from history books. So in 1918, approximately 20 million Indians died. That was around 7% of the Indian population. And if you look at the patterns in India, it has been tremendously similar to what we are seeing currently. So for example, Bombay or Mumbai was worst hit in 1918, along with Gujarat. It is exactly similar to what we see today. Also, the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic spared some of the coastal regions where diet, including fish, plays a major role. And it is absolutely similar to what we see today. For example, Kerala, Odisha, and other several coastal areas are spared. And here the exception is the big cities where fish consumption is not really popular in India. Now, here is the key message. So here we have 3 months of lockdown, and we are slowly lifting the lockdown. This means that most of the population in India may be vitamin D deficient. And right now, the spread of the virus is also increasing. This means that it, coupled with the spread of the virus, this would increase tremendously the death rates in the coming months. Spanish flu also peaked in India towards the end of monsoon. And this means that we as Indians should be extremely careful in order to check our vitamin D levels and improve it as soon as possible in order to make sure that we don't go through similar fate as 1918 pandemic. And this message is also important for colored people in living in US, UK. The pattern is pretty similar, and we may be bracing for a second wave in winter. So it is important that we increase the vitamin D levels to a level which is healthy and advocated by the healthcare departments in different countries. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. So tell us about your own vitamin D story, Rahul. I believe yours was 5 or 10 nanograms a mil recently, was it?
Yeah, it was 5 nanogram per milliliter.
5 nanograms per milliliter, so remarkably low.
In January, yes.
That was January?
Yes.
So that's only 5 months, 6 months, 5 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and how do you know it was 5 nanograms? Did you get it taken? Did you get checked?
Yes, I did test it back then.
And what did you do in response to that low level?
Now, what I did was I tried to take supplements along with eating quite a lot of fish and exposing myself to sunlight when it is possible. But taking supplements, I mean, I started with 1,000 international units per day, and then increased it to 2,000. And it took me around 3 to 4 months before getting to not deficient level, which is about 30.
So, and what's your level now?
Right now, it is around 33 nanogram per milliliter.
33. So you've gone from 5 nanograms a milliliter to 33 nanograms per millimeter.
Yeah.
By taking 2,000 units of vitamin D, which is 50 micrograms.
Absolutely. That is correct.
Vitamin D per day.
That's correct.
And do you think this has made any difference to your health?
Absolutely, John. I've been more productive ever since. I used to get flu twice or thrice in every season. So I used to go to doctor, and doctor used to prescribe me antibiotics, actually. And then I did my own
antibiotics for a virus.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll let that one go. Yeah.
Yeah. Then maybe because of secondary bacterial infection.
Okay. We'll be generous. Yeah. Yeah.
But it didn't really help to treat it, because it was coming back again and again. But ever since I started taking vitamin D, there has been a remarkable improvement in my health, especially with respect to flu. So
So, just from your experience, it looks like the vitamin D's bolstered your immunity anyway.
Absolutely. There was one key thing that I wanted to tell you. I also researched on the vitamin D, but vitamin D, in order for vitamin D to work, there are some other cofactors as well, or let's say associated vitamins needs to be taken, which is basically K2 is very important so that you don't build up the calcium in your blood. This is also medically researched. Magnesium helps in the absorption of vitamin D. This is also kind of proven. So it's sort of like vitamin D could be a marker for many other deficiencies as well. So that's why it is important to consider taking other supplements along with vitamin D so that coordinated effect on the immune system would be greater. At least that's what I from the research that I've done.
And of course, a healthy diet with lots of fruit and vegetables and things like that.
Absolutely.
People don't need too much protein. Maybe a gram of protein per kilogram per day is okay. But a lot of people don't get enough fresh fruit and vegetables.
Yes.
And of course, as you know, about 90% of the vitamin D that most people have comes from the sunlight.
Absolutely, that's correct. In the case of vegetarians, maybe it's a little bit more. In the case of vegetarians, if you don't have access to good milk, it may be a little bit more,
That's a very good point. Now, are Indians big meat eaters? Do they eat a lot of meat and fish all over India?
Actually, it varies. So, for example, the place where I come from, Kerala, we eat quite a lot of fish and non-vegetarian food. Approximately 96-97% are non-vegetarians. But when you go to Gujarat, for example, more than 50% are vegetarians, actually. And even some of them are very strict vegetarians, meaning that they don't even eat egg.
And that's because of the Hindu beliefs, isn't it?
Yes, partly because of that.
Yeah. And these were the areas that suffered more severely from Spanish flu in 1918, 1919.
Yes, the pattern indicates that these are the regions which mostly affected. Even the death rates in India was remarkably high compared to any other countries. It was 7% of the population. So it cannot be all genetics and other factors. Nutrition might also play a big role, and culture.
It's just unimaginable, isn't it? 7% of the population.
Absolutely, John. I mean, this is my biggest fear, India cannot afford this time, because we are closely moving into that area, maybe not 7%, but at least, if we can do something about it, that would be really good.
Well, I do know that some hospitals in India are full already.
Yes.
I do know that many poorer people in India don't have access to hospitals realistically at the best of times.
That is correct.
And we do know that about 80% of people get this disease very mildly.
Yes.
But about 15% of people get COVID to some degree of seriousness to be quite ill. But we know that 5% are critical.
Absolutely.
And my fear is that without good medical care, a fair proportion of that 5% will not make it.
That is
now. We are a lot better off than 1918 in one respect, because in 1918 quite a lot of people died from secondary bacterial infection.
Yes.
Now we don't know the figures on that. It would be lovely to know that, but of course that's lost to history. We'll never know that.
Yeah.
So I'm quite optimistic that we can treat the bacterial secondary infection because antibiotics are available in India and they're relatively cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in fact, between you and me, most of the antibiotics we use all around the world are manufactured in India.
Yeah.
India manufactures a lot of drugs.
Exactly. And it is also going to help the world, if you find a drug or a vaccine, if you produce it in India, it is going to be extremely cheap and affordable for most of the population across the world.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice.
No, absolutely. And Indians can produce biomedical things of very high quality, and they can produce them usually very economically as well.
Absolutely.
So if you're a scientist watching in India, come on guys, let's get going. we need this as soon as we can. Yeah. But getting back to the serious point, what proportion of that 5% or that 15% could die, I don't know, but it is a frightening possibility. So anything we can do to improve people's immunity in India, and anywhere in the world, of course, anything we can do to improve people's immunity.
Yeah.
And the simple fact of the matter is that your skin will produce vitamin D about 20 times more slowly than mine will in the sun.
Absolutely.
And it's that simple. So the supplements are going to be absolutely essential. Yes. In Indian culture, Rahul, do Indians sunbathe quite a lot? Are they always sort of put their shorts on and go and sunbathing? Is that Indian culture?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
We avoid sun, so we have a sun avoidance culture, to be honest. Yeah. When I was in Europe, when I came to Europe first, I was literally surprised that people go out to seek the sun. And when I walk with people, the Europeans, they walk on the brighter part of the road.
The sunny side of the street.
Sunny side of the road, yeah. And I walk in the shade, so it's sort of like inbuilt in our psychological thing that you avoid sun at any cost, because it's not good.
Because, of course, normally you'd just cook in the sun in India. It's 35, 40 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sun just becomes intolerable, doesn't it? If you're hot already, it's just...
Yes. That's also the key, So if you look at the Middle East, the reason why, people have deficiency in Middle East where the sun is strong is because people avoid sun. I know quite a few people from Kerala who are in the Middle East who are severely vitamin D deficient, because I also warn them that you check your blood levels. I think I warned them in March itself. You check your blood level, and most of it came out to be less than 10 nanogram per milliliter.
Wow. This is your contacts in Kerala?
Absolutely, yeah. Because a lot of Keralites, they work in Middle East. And an interesting part is, like, in Kerala, we got only 18 deaths in the whole state of around 36 million population. But outside Kerala, the deaths have been like remarkably high. Like I think in the Middle East countries, we have close to 200 or 250 deaths. In the US, UK, so overall, around 400 deaths.
And that would make sense because in Kerala, they're eating more fish, therefore the vitamin D levels are higher.
Yeah, this is one topic. I checked with many of my friends, again, anecdotal evidence, so we can't establish any causality or something. So actually, the major thing that changes for any Kerala person or a Keralite going outside Kerala is they consume less fish. Regardless if it is in Mumbai, northern part of India, when they migrate to northern part of India, or if they migrate to US, UK, or to Middle East, they consume very less fish compared to.
Of course, fish is expensive in the US and the UK.
Yes, and it is pretty cheap in Kerala. It's a staple food, in Kerala. Yeah.
So we've got these factors. We've got a lot of vegetarianism in India, so they're not eating meat and fish.
Yes.
And of course, if they're not eating meat, that gives the possibility of low levels of zinc.
Yes.
Which is also very easy to supplement, of course, as well.
Absolutely.
So we've got the cultural behavior. We've got the fact that the diet changes, that people are often spending most of the time indoors, and all these factors conspire to mean that there is basically a pandemic of vitamin D deficiency across the Indian subcontinent.
I can totally agree to that. And what I can also point out is that India had one of the very strict lockdowns. I think lockdowns was necessary in the beginning to contain the spread, to make sure that it doesn't spread. But an unintended consequence of a strict lockdown was people were basically sitting at home, even not venturing out at all for roughly 3 months. And this means that, we basically miss the summer protection of vitamin D, whatever less that we get. And now we are already moving into monsoon, and monsoon is the time when diseases peak in India. I mean, it's similar to winter time in Europe.
So you get more diseases in India in monsoon time when there's less sunshine.
Yeah, towards the end of monsoon, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you will be surprised in Mumbai, you get like around 250, 270 hours of sunshine during May, and it drops to 150 hours in June. But in July, it drops to 75 hours, and that is a remarkable drop in the sunshine and subsequent vitamin D production.
Yeah, and also normally think of India as being sunny, don't you? But of course, on the monsoon, it's completely dark and overcast for days on end, isn't it?
Absolutely, monsoon is. I mean, in Kerala, it's like it's you don't see sun. I mean, if it is raining heavily, and plus also one important fact is during monsoon, you are less likely to go out, regardless of whether sun is shining or not, because you don't want to get the rain. And you are likely to close your windows. And you know that UV radiation cannot penetrate to the windows, and this is also one factor. One of my friend was saying that I get sunshine all the time because sun comes through the window to my desk. I said that no, it doesn't help you because
right.
the glass basically.
Not a lot of people know. That's an excellent point. You cannot sunbathe through a glass window.
It is
because it will just block off the ultraviolet radiation.
Yes. Especially people in Gulf countries, they don't like to open the windows because it's the hot air comes in. So they think that, you can get the sunshine through the window, but it doesn't work.
And when people are all shut in, any viruses that are there are going to stay in the air and concentrate it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things they did in Thailand when the virus came is they turned off the central heat. They turned off the air conditioning and opened all the windows.
Wow, that is really great, actually.
It's a very, very good foresight. Yeah, so you got plenty of fresh air blowing through. Yeah. And of course, that diluted the viral loads.
Absolutely. Yeah. And John, here is one more topic, just opening the window and letting the sun come through, not the glass, but, through the open windows itself will help to get the vitamin D because, you don't have to be directly in the sunshine. It can also get scattered, across the room, and then.
Oh, interesting, right? So you'll make some vitamin D in
some vitamin D. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's the practice of opening windows which is the most critical part.
Yes. So through the glass, the light that diffuses through the glass, you'll produce no vitamin D.
No, not at all, because
if there's an open window, that light just bouncing around the room will generate.
Exactly. At least some you will get. Not quite a lot, but at least some.
So, that is a really good point. Excellent point. Yeah. So I think these are the key messages we wanted to get across. It just seems so obvious that there is this problem, and basically what I would do is advise everyone from the subcontinent origin or anyone with dark coloured skin is to get their vitamin D levels checked.
Absolutely.
Go to the doctor and get their vitamin D levels checked.
Yeah.
And then as you've done, you've titrated your levels up from 5 nanograms per mil up to 33 nanograms per mil.
Yes.
Yeah. And I suspect because you were starting from such a low base, Rahul, I suspect yours will carry on going up a little bit more yet.
Yes, that is correct, John. I think that, if you have very, very low vitamin D level, and if you take 2000 international units, it's going to take a lot of time. It took me like 5 months, right? I mean, it's basically 5 months. And I was really surprised when I got to know that it's 33. I thought that it would be, I really thought that, I may be overdosing, So when I checked, it was like, oh my God, this is this is really crazy. This is really crazy. In spite of eating 2000 IU per day, after 5 months, it's roughly 33. So
I think it will go up. I think it will go up a bit higher. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I think it was go up a bit higher. Yeah. I always try and leave my mobile phone out. Then sometimes you forget the thing. I hate them. No. So that is really good news. The other thing is if people are obese. Then it's going to take longer to build the vitamin D levels up because when someone who's obese eats vitamin D, the vitamin D will go into the fatty tissues.
Yes,
first.
That is correct.
And they will fill up before it spills over into the blood. And it's only when it's in the blood it's going to have the protective effect.
Absolutely, John. I mean, here also I am a little bit obese in the sense that I am borderline obese, so it could also be playing into this building up later part.
Yeah. The other thing about a lot of people from Indian ethnicity is they can store quite a lot of fat in the abdomen. They have quite a bit of visceral fat.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, that's the fat that's associated with things like diabetes and hypertension. So, I mean, basically, there's an epidemic of diabetes in India at the moment. It's so prevalent now.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's concerning is a lot of the diabetes, especially in poorer areas, is not recognized.
Yes.
People don't know they have it and they present with complications.
Yeah.
And there's new data we've just got from South Africa, actually, that shows that people with uncontrolled diabetes have a much, much higher risk of death than people with well-controlled diabetes.
Okay.
So it looks like that's going to be a major factor. Anyway, Rahul, tell us about your research for those of us that want to know more.
Okay, so our research was about basically, so once I identified this pattern that I talked about, Spanish flu, I thought that, what could be driving this topic, the
It's a
pattern.
most
So
excellent observation, by the way. It's a very impressive observation.
oh, thank you very much.
I wasn't aware of it. There's many things I'm not aware of, but sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so since we are not from the medical field, the next best thing to vitamin D levels is actually checking the UV index.
Yeah, I think we should say you're a data man, aren't you? You're an engineer, you're a business person, so you understand data.
Yes, absolutely. So
when I look at the numbers, they mean very little to me until I turn them into a graph. But guys like you can look at numbers and it actually means something to you, doesn't it?
That's what we do, right? In consulting in business. Yeah. But nevertheless, so once I understood that there is some pattern about the Spanish flu, what I did is I talked to a colleague of mine from the university, and we started sort of like a project together with our professor Bernd Skiera. Now, what we did is we collected all the weather data because we didn't know what is the vitamin D level in each country, so we couldn't check that. So the next best thing that we could do is try to understand how the vitamin D synthesis could look like, which is basically driven by UVB radiation, ultraviolet-B radiation, which is of course one part of the ultraviolet spectrum. Now, UVB radiation technically is measured by UV index, which is basically telling you how much sun exposure you can afford to if you are sunbathing and what is the risk of skin burn. Now, we got this data and then we pulled it all together. We analyzed it. What we found is the UVB index or UV index, when it increases by 1, there is a significant reduction in the death rate, daily death rate.
Just tell us about this UV index a bit, Rahul. I'm not that familiar with it. Is it 1 to 10 or what is it?
It's generally 1 to 12, but it can go higher as well. So 0 to 12.
0 to 12. So 12 would be the highest amount of UVB.
Yeah, 12, 13, it can go beyond 12, but very rarely.
Okay, right. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. So for one increase in the UVB index.
Yeah.
What happens if there's one increase?
So let me just quickly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
So what we found out is a permanent UV index increase of 1 unit is associated with 1.2 percentage points decline in daily growth rates of cumulative COVID-19 deaths. So what it means is if there is a death in a particular city or a country, if it changes from 1,000 to 1,100, so that is like a 10% increase. Now, if there is a unit increase of UV in that place, what would happen is instead of increasing from 1,000 to 1,100, it increases from 1,000 to 1,088 on a daily basis. So eventually what you will see is a flattening of the curve on a daily basis. That is important.
And so the cumulative numbers really build up there, don't they?
Absolutely. So it's compounding, compounding in the sense that once you have a sufficient UV index in a particular place, the death rate is more or less flattening. Now, what we also did is because there is a confounding effect. So age structure, skin pigmentation, obesity prevalence, dietary culture, dietary supplements, these are all contributing to, let's say, the severity of the COVID. So what we did is we used some advanced statistical methods to control for each of these factors. And still we find the significant association. And we were like thinking,
clever. I don't know how to do that. It's clever. Tell me what you accounted for. Which factors?
So we accounted for country-specific factors. So whatever factors within a country is fixed over a period of time, which is basically age structure, skin pigmentation, obesity prevalence, dietary culture, dietary supplement, then food fortification, active lifestyle, mobility, latitude. These things are fixed at a country level. And we also control for the time trends, which is basically the countermeasures by the government, because if you lock it down, then the virus doesn't spread, and also those factors which will slow the infection rates. And we also control for time varying factors, meaning that the weather could also play a role, like temperature, humidity, ozone, pollution. Pollution is something that you also talked about in a video. So even after controlling for all these, you still find a significant evidence of association.
So all these confounding factors that could potentially mess up your result, you accounted for them all. Yes. Statistically, you're able to take those out of that equation and you still find that genuine relationship.
Absolutely. And we were also surprised that 2 other studies also found the same association, one from Harvard and the other from Mexico. They found similar association, similar significant association. So I was like, oh, wow, this is so this could be a big factor, this UV index. Now, there is one more thing that I think you also talked in one of your videos, that UV index or sun is solar exposure is primarily mediating vitamin D synthesis, but also nitric oxide and melatonin, serotonin, these kind of levels. So we cannot rule that out, So if there is a nitric oxide increase, maybe that's also helping. But what we understand is like if the UV index is increasing, the death rates are declining, regardless of what other factors are at play.
So the more ultraviolet radiation, the less people die.
Absolutely. And one anecdotal evidence, one anecdotal evidence is actually 2. One is February, if you remember, February was a very bad weather pattern in Europe, if you remember.
Yes.
There were like 2 or 3 storm systems.
It rained all the time.
All the time, yeah. People were less going out and so on and so forth. And it was also towards the end of, let's say, the winter and beginning of the spring. So what happens is, if you look at the vitamin D levels, many studies show that it shows a seasonal pattern, dramatic seasonal pattern. This means that vitamin D levels in countries above 35-degree north latitude, which is basically the countries with the colder winters, darker winters, they have very less vitamin D level towards the end of winter. And that's when
so the vitamin D is running out over four months or so. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
And the pattern is reversed in the southern hemisphere, for example, in Brazil and Argentina and so on and so forth. So you will see that now. COVID deaths are increasing there. South Africa is increasing. New Zealand is a brilliant example. I think they might have eradicated it. Well, because if the virus is not there, then it is not going to affect people, during winter. So that
it came at the end of their summer when their vitamin D levels were highest.
Absolutely. And one important point is Australia may have, I think, close to 100 deaths, right? But most of these deaths, I think, are from people who are coming from outside Australia.
They are.
There has not been a community transmission per se within Australia, according to the evidence.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very impressive statistics. I think that's so. Can we put links to all these things for our viewers to?
Absolutely. I can also give you the slides so that they can also go through it, and also the link to our studies.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Now, where are you submitting this to for peer review?
So we are submitting it to scientific reports in Nature. So it is currently under review, and it is taking quite a lot of time right now to come out. But I think the results are significant enough to actually tell the people, because other studies also kind of corroborated this, It's not just our study.
Nature is the leading scientific journal in the world, really, isn't it? So.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely marvelous. Good. Thank you very much for that. So what we've done here is we've put together all these things that indicate that vitamin D might be a factor.
Yeah.
And everything just seems to fit into place. It just needs to fit. Everything just seems to fit, doesn't it? What we need, of course, is a huge international randomized double-blind controlled trial, isn't it? But given that we haven't got much time, and the serious point here is the death rate in India, for example, Pakistan, Bangladesh. The other thing that was upsetting was the Rohingya in Cox's Bazar.
Yeah.
The cases are starting there now, and this is an emergency situation, and people really need to get this message quickly, because people are starting to die now, and we know this is going to increase over the next weeks and months.
Yes, John, this is my biggest fear, I mean, the South Asia specifically may face the biggest humanitarian crisis in its history. And this is my biggest fear. May not be close to 1918, but it would perhaps exceed every other death rates in every other part of the world, which is the biggest worry,
Yeah. No, I agree completely, and I think the way that you brought your expertise to bear on this is pretty wonderful. Actually,
and one statistics is one more topic is basically regarding the seasonality of this topic. I mean, in India, basically influenza, it peaks around July, August, September, and that's when the vitamin D levels are lower.
July, August, September, there's influenza.
Influenza,
Yeah.
Now
and of course, what will be bad is to get COVID-19 and influenza at the same time.
Exactly.
And that's associated, we think, with a very poor prognosis.
It's not just influenza. There's also dengue fever, malaria, all sort of things happens at the same time, and people will be confused, like what do they have, and diagnosis, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So in India, in the monsoon, you get more malaria, more dengue,
more everything.
More everything, basically. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the access, the roads are blocked because it's flooding, and even if you're critical, you cannot access. Even if there is a bed available, it would be very difficult for you to reach the hospital. So it's everything is compounding, and don't forget the fact that we are coming from a lockdown, and you basically observe that 3 to 4 months of vitamin D reserves, and towards the end you get a really, really deficient level.
Yeah.
And I think that even though the disease is peaking in July, August, September in India, it could be earlier with respect to 19 because we were actually missing the sunshine during.
Right. Well, what we need to do is get this message out to as many people as possible. So we appeal to Indian politicians.
Yes.
In fact, politicians all over the world to listen to this.
Yes.
We appeal to media organizations as well.
Yes.
Now, what is your first language, Rahul?
My first language is Malayalam. So this is the language which is spoken in Kerala.
Right. So Southern Indian language. Right. Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, that opening introduction, I'm going to get that translated into Hindi.
Yes.
We'll put that out in Hindi. And can I invite you to give those key facts now in your own language?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely. Yeah. കേരളത്തിലുള്ള എൻ്റെ സഹോദരി സഹോദരന്മാരെ, ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ ജോണുമായിട്ട് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് വൈറ്റമിൻ ഡി അതിൻ്റെ ലെവലിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ്. അപ്പം നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിൽ ഇതുവരെ അധികം മരണങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടില്ല. പക്ഷേ ഇനി വരുന്ന മൺസൂൺ കാലങ്ങളിൽ കോവിഡ് മരണങ്ങൾ കൂടാൻ വളരെ വളരെ സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. 1918 കേരളത്തിൽ ഇത്ര മരണനിരക്ക് ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ ഇപ്പോൾ എന്താ സംഭവിക്കുന്നത് വെച്ചാൽ 3 മാസമായി നമ്മൾ ലോക്ക്ഡൌണിലായിരുന്നു. അതുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മുടെ വൈറ്റമിൻ ഡി ലെവൽ വളരെ കുറഞ്ഞ സമയമാണിത്. ഇപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ കാണുന്ന പോലെ നമ്മുടെ കോവിഡ് മരണനിരക്ക് ഇപ്പോൾ വളരെ 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 കൂടിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ സമയത്ത് നിങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ വൈറ്റമിൻ ഡി ലെവൽ വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്യുകയും അത് കൂട്ടാനുള്ള നടപടികൾ എടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്യണം. സൺലൈറ്റ് ആണ് ഏറ്റവും നല്ലത്. പിന്നെ സൺലൈറ്റ് ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ മീൻ കഴിക്കണം നന്നായിട്ട്, ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ ഡോക്ടറോട് ചോദിച്ചിട്ട് സപ്ലിമെന്റ്സ് കഴിക്കണം. ഇത് വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആണ്. കാരണം നമുക്ക് ഇനി ഒരു 1918 പോലുള്ള ഒരു കേസ് ഇനി ഒരിക്കലും നമ്മൾ അറിഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് അനുവദിക്കരുത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ ഹെൽത്ത് അതോറിറ്റീസ്, പൊളിറ്റീഷ്യൻസ് ഇവരോടെല്ലാം പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്, മീഡിയാസിനോട് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഇത് എത്രയും പെട്ടെന്ന് ഇതിനൊരു ബോധവൽക്കരണവും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഒരു പ്രിവെൻഷൻ ആയിട്ടുള്ള സ്ട്രാറ്റജി ആക്കാനുള്ളത് നിങ്ങൾ എന്തായാലും ചെയ്യണം. താങ്ക് യു.
Good, excellent, thank you. So we can put that out with the Hindi version as well, and we can reach as many people as possible. And what I'll do is I won't do it now, but I'll edit that bit and we'll put that out as a separate video for
that's very good
for reach as many people as we can, and hopefully the people will share this around as well. YouTube's well watched in India. I get a lot of views in India, so
yes, that's good actually.
I think it is a way ahead. Yeah. Rahul, thank you so much. I really believe you've just saved some lives, a lot of lives potentially.
I do believe so. The biggest worry that I have is we all have this information, life-saving information, and we are waiting for, let's say, confirmation through randomized control trial, which will come maybe after 2 or 3 months. But a year from now, if everybody confirmed that this was the cause, then there is no use of confirmation because most of people would have died by then. So
absolutely.
I would be extremely disappointed if we come to that point wherein we face a humanitarian crisis which could have prevented.
Absolutely. In India, the because of the rapid potential rapid growth in cases, the pandemic could be over in 6 months' time.
It would be over in three months.
Yeah. So I mean, the good thing about that is there'll be herd immunity, but there'll be a lot of casualties on the way.
That's the problem.
That's the issue. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you.